side.
I
I
don't know.
mean, maybe we're live. I don't know if we're live yet. So welcome. Welcome to the
Hello.
show. Hi, welcome. So today is a special day. This is Mike. He is going to be here basically teaching how to build the MSI PC parts, PC gaming kit that PA Smart Grant guys at libraries have received. This is for the end of this month. We're going to be building this live with kids. So we're just recording today so you can walk through and stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. If you have questions, we'll be cutting this up later and then emailing out directions in a PDF, kind of like step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. But we wanted to put it on the record of actually building it live via the old Twitch. So, we'll be watching the stream if anybody's paying attention. If not, this is just for recording purposes. PA Smart Grant, Libraries of the PA. This is Mike. I'll be over here moderating. Anybody got any questions?
Send them in chat.
So, all right, yeah, put them in chat. And so basically, what's happening is MSI parts, got a liquid cooler, got a motherboard, got the old Windows licensing because we're legal, got the old 4060 MSI power supply, modular power supply. That's dope. Little i5 action, extra lights because RGB.
Gotta glow.
RGB, right?
Yep.
Yeah, RGB. And then we got a 1 terabyte solid state drive, all shoved inside an MSI case. Boom, partners, it's upside down, but we can't flip it because it's already opened. That's what we're doing. So, without further ado, and also we have got the old install kit for the Windows to activate this bad boy. But Mike's going to walk you through it. I'm out the way. You guys are awesome. All right, Mike, you're on your own.
All right, I'm on my own. Let's go. All right, so first thing, if you're watching this recording, you might want to do is pause it and open all of your boxes. All right, now that everything's open, so you want to just try and organize everything so you don't lose it, and make sure you keep it clean just so that way, you're not moving stuff constantly and getting frustrated because it's in the way. So the first thing we're going to do is get our case out of the box, since the board's got to go in first before everything. So we've got our MSI Gungnir 110R case. Pretty sweet, pretty standard. But you got your window here so you can see everything once it's beautiful and glowing on the inside. So most of these you can hand tighten when you put it back together, but from the factory you might need a screwdriver to get the case open. These side panels are tempered glass, so they're very strong, but you still want to be careful with it, Joe. That way it doesn't break and make a huge mess everywhere. So here's the inside of the case before everything's in it. You can see lots of room to work in this one.
Take it off, put it to the side, all that type of thing. Like these are little kids, right?
For little kids.
Really, you're instructing little kids, Mike.
Yeah.
So, be safe with the glass.
I did, yeah. Okay. So, I'm trying to look on this one. We'll just put the board in first, since that's standardly what you want to do. So we've got our motherboard here. This is the main part of the computer where everything goes into it. When you open this, you'll notice it's in an anti-static bag. Generally, when you're putting stuff or handling computer parts, they have anti-static mats or anti-static wristbands you can wear. You just want to be careful, like don't be building on carpet with wool socks and shuffling your feet and building up a static charge. So what you can do is touch the metal in the case every time you think you might have generated a little bit of shock, and hold the bag as well. So when you touch the case, you discharge any static electricity you might have had, just to protect your components. So here's the board. We'll put that aside for 1 second. Inside the box, we should have some screws. Nope, this case is extra nice. So there are little raised up screw holes in here. They're called the standoffs. Back in the day, you used to have to screw those in yourself. Very annoying. So thanks MSI for making this easy. I'm putting the board on the cardboard just because it's a safe, static-free surface. When you're handling components, try to handle them by the edges as much as possible. The boards are pretty well protected these days, but it's still better safe than sorry, just so you don't end up breaking anything. So you'll see on the back of the board here, these are your inputs. So that'll go towards the back of the case. Right here. Let's see, how's our sky cam looking?
That cam looks good.
Pretty good. All
Yeah.
right.
A little more volume is all I'm looking for here.
Yeah.
Which way's up?
I don't know.
Here we go. Try that out.
Can y'all hear me now?
So Mike is putting the motherboard into the case, and all he's doing is he's aligning the holes in the motherboard with the standoffs. Mike had point. The standoffs are these little raised, like they're just points that you would screw the board in. So the board doesn't sit flat on metal on metal. So it's raised up like, what'd you say, a millimeter or something?
Yeah, I'd say a millimeter.
Yeah.
So
that's,
you'll notice when you're putting in, it may be hard to see on the cameras, but there's holes, the screw holes all around. So they'll just sit right on these standoffs. All right, where's our case?
Yeah, so you got, so that aligns there, two in the corner, one over here. The ones in the middles don't have standoffs, but the corners definitely do. And this one here, you'll notice you'll just basically take a screwdriver and screw this in. Now again, just try to touch the case as much as possible. If you're on in a library with carpet, make sure you're touching the case. Make sure you're grounding yourself. Just get in the habit of doing it. It just, you know, they sell special wristbands that you would officially lock yourself on the case. But in essence, touching the case is the exact same thing. Right? I mean, would you say?
Yeah, essentially.
So, that's
the
what we're working
wristband
on.
just, you clip it to the metal in the case.
It looks really fancy. Like,
It
super,
does. You look legit.
super legit.
Okay, I'm not seeing screws for the motherboard.
Got the motherboard packet right there.
Yeah.
It's in the box.
So we got data cables. That's the screw for the hard drive.
Did we throw the screws away on accident?
No. I mean, we just opened it.
All right, so we need screws for the motherboard.
Screws might come up later. I know the last build we did, I felt like screws just showed up.
Where
in a
were
different
they?
Box.
Okay, well, I think that's kind of a problem. So hold up. Let me find the screws for
Oh,
you.
wait, case?
Case.
No, nothing in there.
Are they inside here?
Ah, good thinking.
It
Let's
looks
get
like
that
there's
off.
a bag inside there. Yeah. Okay, so hold
All
on.
right. So there's
Yeah,
some
there's a-
screws on the top here holding the power supply and cable management area on.
We're taking this part out. We're removing it by unscrewing from the bottom. Because there's, or could you pull the front out, you think? Could you get to them? I'd probably get to them from the front. Yeah, because there's a bag inside. There's a bag inside where it says MSI right in here. Pull that over a little bit. You just got to find the screws that came with the motherboard. So the screws came with the motherboard. That would make the most sense because the motherboard has, depending upon the thread that they use.
Yeah, the case screws are specific. Not specific, but
Kind of odd you have to take this whole part off.
you probably don't have to. Yeah, because that's not even.
Well, here, you want to take it out and line it up and stand up and see?
Yeah. All right.
So going backwards like every good build.
Yeah. This will happen. Don't get frustrated.
I just think if you check the front. It makes sense that the front comes off or something. Taking the other side of the case off probably gives us access to the back of it. Because it's kind of odd you would take this power supply protector off.
Hey, there they are.
So on the back side, you'll see this is what you're looking for. So here are all your screws. Here are all your screws. Certain cords you're going to need. We don't need any of these little. This is for an old school hard drive. but we're not going to be using that. So really, you just care about the screws and the
Yeah.
paper or the wires there.
Yeah, so screws are what we're looking for now. So found the quick installation guide. So all the parts will come with documentation for what you need to do with them. So if you ever get lost and need something to reference, you can just go back and reread those directions.
Should they just pull the front and the back off at the same time to start?
Yeah, I would pull both sides off. Eventually, when we're plugging things in and trying to clean up the cables, you'll route them from the top through the back, and that's kind of where they hide out, so that it looks neat. Alright, so we've got our little screws for the case. These ones might be for the fans. So let's make sure we're keeping everything nice and neat and together. Alright, back onto the top. Motherboard back in. So these rear panels back here for the input and output are pretty big. So I like to try and line it up with that just to get it through. And then you can go back and fine tune the motherboard placement for your standoffs. So we'll get that screwed in and secure. Whenever you're tightening screws for computers, you don't want to over tighten anything. Most of the components are built from a plastic board, so you can crack these if everything's too tight. So just get it in there till it's snug. You can see I'm barely holding the screwdriver, so just putting a little pressure in to make sure it's threading. And then once it gets tight, oh, that one didn't thread. Alright, so it looks like there's no standoff on that hole. Here we go. Yeah, so just get it to where it starts getting a little tight and make it snug, and then you're good to go. So the holes you'll want to look for to put screws in are these ones with, it's kind of a design. I don't think it's anything except to notate those are where the case screws go. You'll see other screw holes in here. These are for the processor cooler that we'll be putting in later. You know, this screwdriver is magnetic, so helpful when putting stuff together. Trying to hold a screw and then get down into some of these tight spaces can be frustrating. But one thing I do is like put some pressure to hold the screw to the screwdriver if you need to, and that'll help you get it lined up where you need it to go. Alright, so we've got 5 screws in, looks like, so it's pretty solid. It's not moving anywhere. Get these cleaned back up, just in case you might need some later. And before I get too far, I'm just going to put these screws I took off back so I don't forget where they came from. so our board is in. Next thing we'll do is we're gonna put the processor in. This is what runs your whole computer. So all the boards will ship with a protector to make sure the pins and the socket don't get damaged. So little lever here. It is tight because it puts a lot of pressure on. So you just push down and move it out and lift up, and then just gently lift this up as well. And then this plastic bracket just slides off the top of the mount there. So that is done.
Garbage.
Yep.
So this is the expensively fun part, right? This little chip here is it's a couple $100 for the kids at home that need to know this.
Yeah.
This is an i5 processor. This is like if you're getting into game, if you're getting an entry level streaming, which is what the library grants is. This is more than enough with the other components to do everything that you're going to be doing. I mean, unless you're running 4 monitors at 4K, then you know that's not what this is. But yeah, we're gonna plop this thing in. Now pay attention to the directions on how to do this, because there's a triangle that you gotta look for.
Little triangle in the corner. Hopefully that focused a bit.
Boop.
So there's
Triangle.
There's a triangle cutout down in here. It's kind of hard to see because
Top right corner. It's on the top right corner.
Yeah. So if we're looking at the board where the back of the case is left, top right here by the little.
I guess it's
lever.
upside down for them technically on the screen here for some reason.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So you'll be able to tell it's in right pretty easily. It just drops right in without any force. So
Grabbing it on the sides. Remember,
yes,
check
Make sure for this for sure you keep it on the side, because you can see. I don't even know if there's pins on these new Intel ones, but these contacts are how the computer talks to the rest of the parts in it. So you just want to make sure those don't get damaged in any way.
So grasp it from the side.
Very careful.
From the side, because you're just going to drop it straight down and in, and just line it up. You know, rectangle on rectangle. Do not force this. That's the key here. You'll know it'll fit. It'll kind of grip when it's in the right spot.
All right, this one. So there's little cutouts on here that it needs to slot into. Let's try the other way just to make sure we have it right. Okay. Yep. So just dropped it right in and it fits.
So the triangle is where on this guy?
So the triangle is down towards the bottom of the board where the expansion slots are.
So right
so
there
so
is your triangle.
I don't know if there's anything that marks it, but I'll just put it in wrong again just so you can sort of see.
Again, this isn't upside down. This is the view that you're looking at right here. Straight down is inverted because the camera's inverted. That's my bad.
Yeah, so you can see it sort of still wiggles a bit here. But switch it back around to the right way.
But when you spin it,
and then get it in. Right in.
It
Pretty
doesn't
solid.
it doesn't move at all. So again, it grips.
All right, so we're gonna put the bracket back on, make sure that doesn't move anywhere. So our processor is in.
That's 2 of like 5 things. We're almost done. Hard part is wiring, right?
So
It's just the wiring.
yeah, wiring's hard,
Yeah.
depending on how messy it is. So these come with another cooler.
Like
So
this?
Most will come with a fan for the processor. Normally that goes on, but we got this cool RGB liquid cooler from MSI, so we're just getting rid of this.
Yeah. Ta-da! I mean, we're not repurposing that at all. Okay.
Yeah, they come for one specific thing, so
Did
you
you actually
can't.
make it in the trash?
I hope so. We'll have to go back and watch it.
Oh no, almost. Almost.
You're ruining the magic.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so I'm flipping this over because for this liquid cooler, it comes ready to go for multiple models. So if you look on the box here, we've got an LGA 1700 socket. So we need the specific part for that, which is right here, LGA 1700. There we go. So we'll put that aside. And then we also need, these are all the different brackets for different processors on here. So there's some power cables for the fans. We'll need those. And fan power converter, depending on if your power supply is older. All right, so here's the LGA 1700 written down here. So that's the other one we need.
So again, LGA 1700, LGA 1700. It's written right here on the bottom of it. This guy goes on the back side of the motherboard like this. This guy goes on the front side of the motherboard. You'll get that next. But these are the two. Don't be, I mean, basically the rest of them are just set them aside somewhere.
So there's other screws depending on the bracket you put on. I'm just going to keep them just in case because I don't remember.
Yeah, we're figuring this out as we go. This is a raw, we're just figuring it out as we go build.
But
Yeah,
our
it's for the fans. Check it out.
yeah, fan controller built in. This is actually really nice. Like I would probably buy one of these cases.
Nice.
Like it just comes with everything and it looks like it makes it easy. All right, so there's our top part of the bracket, and here are the screws that we use to hold the two pieces together. So I'm going to peel off the adhesive tape here. So this is so it'll stick to the bottom. So this part is what these screws screw into to hold it all together.
You can see there are 4 holes in the motherboard. So you're going to line those up and then basically touch down so that on the other side we can screw into it.
Yep, so they just drop right in. Very lightly, just putting some pressure on here so the adhesive sticks and that doesn't fall off. But that's all we need for the bottom.
And you flippity flop, flip the case back over.
And yep, okay. Just cables that hit the mat, not the thing falling off. All right, so here is our cooler. I'm gonna get the fans out of the box first, out of the way. This is what the liquid cooler looks like. A big radiator, and then there's the part that sits on the processor to transfer heat.
So that is going to sit straight on to the onto the processor itself. So it's a radiator, just like a car radiator. It's going to cycle air, cycle liquid, and then it's going to basically just keep the processor cool, so you don't, so it lasts a long time.
Yeah, if you don't have cooling on the processor, so computers run very hot, and it will tell you right away if it's too hot. So you'll know it's not on right once the computer boots up and says thermal warning and it's shutting down. So that's just a fail-safe. You're not going to break anything if it's not on completely. So I was looking at the fans. Some fans will have an arrow telling you which way the wind's blowing to keep it cool. I think on these, the MSI Dragon side is the back, so it's going to spin and blow air.
Or no,
MSI
is the front.
Yeah, so this.
Well, all the rest of them are with the MSI out, with the Dragon out, like looking at the Dragon.
Yeah. So you'll notice in the case, so like the MSI like part number and all that is already in here, so that's the back. So the wind blows from this way out. So what we'll do is, since this is going on the top, we want the air blowing through it.
We're going to pull the air through the top of the case in, and then it'll push out the back. Basically, is what Mike's saying. Now the question is, do we put the fans on the top of it, or do we put the fans on the bottom of it? That's the questions running through Mike's head right now. Yeah.
So I think we'll just put them on like this.
I mean, they're already. You can see that on this case, they already have the holes on the side.
Yeah, so it's very easy to line up and.
Yeah. So again, the key here now is just knowing where the wires are. So if your wires are on the wrong side, then it's going to come out the wrong side with the motherboard. So you need these things to plug in. So Mike, do you think it should be up and down or side to side, or what do you think?
Here, we'll test fit it. So essentially, here's the top of the case. The radiator is going to sit in like this, and then the hoses will come through. So
Think you go the other way, maybe? No.
I like that. I mean, the logo lines up for the writing.
Okay.
Yeah, because these will be fine. It's very flexible, so we'll get it flexed to where it needs to go once it's in. So if you don't have an extra set of hands, you can move the case and work flat on the table just to keep things easier. Alright, so we want this pulling in. And then that's our top. So I'm making sure the wires are down this way, so that way when they plug into the motherboard or fan controller,
Would that be pulling out that way?
there.
Is this going to go on the top there, or is this on
So
the
it's
bottom?
going to go on the bottom. So we
So
want
you want it.
yeah.
So it's
it
so
blows,
it's underneath
it
like
blows
this?
way.
So you want it to come through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So- Like that.
Now I can see the.
Yeah, because the other ones are pulling in this way.
Okay. I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to see the writing MSI on everything, and you want to look at the Dragon. I think.
Yeah. The
At
dragon.
least that's the way we built all our other ones.
Yeah, that's a cool side that you want.
Cool
pointing-
side. See that
pointing out,
side? Yeah. Don't look at the writing part.
Okay, so we'll get our screws. So these were in the box from the cooler.
You need me, or you good?
I'm all right.
All right, sweet. Try to put this guy on.
Nope, not yet.
All right, sweet.
So the screw should fit the whole way through. How are we doing this guy? So these screws look like they should come apart. So you can adjust the length that you need. Let's see, I don't think we had instructions in our box here. No. Oh, you know what? These are the screws that hold the bracket in, so they do not fit for the fan. We'll take these extra ones from the box that look like fan screws, because these are very long, so they'll slide the whole way through the fan. And then for anything like this, where you might need to adjust it, I'll just get the screw in a little bit so it doesn't fall out. And then, yeah, so I can drop it, it moves around, but it's not going anywhere. And then generally when you're putting stuff on the computer, try to go opposite just to make sure that they're lined up and nothing's pulling one way or the other until you get them all in. Got that one in.
The Impossible Airplane Game.
Now we got all 4 screws in. It looks right, so there's still room for the other fan. So I'll just finish tightening them down completely. And again, like everything else, just make it snug and not overly tight. You shouldn't need to be forcing anything when you're screwing in computer parts. There we go. One fan attached.
Don't mind me, I'm just making a TikTok.
If you don't follow us on TikTok or any other socials, it's always VGC USA and everything.
Literally at everything.
You would not believe the trouble we had getting that on X now.
Yeah, Twitter.
Do we even use that?
Vakuza. Yeah. VGC USA, we use that.
Good old, what's his name, Vince?
Victor G.
Victor.
Kusa had it.
We should
Victor
reach
G.
out to him.
Kusa, yeah. Should reach out to him, yeah.
Hey, bro. No hard
Come
feelings.
on,
right?
Mike. Hey.
Alright, getting the second fan tightened up. our radiator is ready. Alright, so then we have to attach the radiator to the top here. Let's see how we get there. More screws everywhere. So I think this mesh should just come out. Yep, magnetic, right off. Okay. So I'm just gonna line it up here, see what holes it goes to and how long of a screw we're gonna need. Alright, we're almost fitting there. There we go. And then there are tiny, whoops, shorter tiny screws here that were in the case, or in the same bag as the longer fan screws. So since there's not much to pass through here in the top, just need these short ones. So again, just go on opposite corners here to get it held in first. How's it looking on Skycam here? There we go. Get a little better view of where I'm screwing in. So you can see there's a wide opening here. You can get different size coolers. If you're running a faster processor or overclocking, you can get bigger coolers. For the most part, the one we got, the 240 with the 2 fans, is very adequate for 90% of any application that a computer is going to be being used for. And the last one. Alright, and since everything's still nice and lined up, I'm just going to go ahead and finish tightening these down. Again, doing a crisscross pattern just so that way the screws don't pull too tightly one way or another and mess the alignment up. Alright, and just like that, we've got our radiator in.
Job of a moderator right here. Look at
Yeah.
that. Check that out.
Alright,
Boom.
so now that that's in, so the next thing we'll be doing is getting our bracket ready. So we've got our 1700 bracket here. If you hold it down here, you can sort of see it lines up with the 4 holes. So there's the 4 screw holes from the bottom bracket we attached earlier. So when you put this over, you can see it lines up just like that. So then the way that this works is just squeezes right around, and you can adjust that if it doesn't line up for how you have it. So again, just test fitting, just making sure everything can reach where it needs to go before we tighten anything down. So as you can see, right on top, perfectly lined up. So then what you need to do, make sure the plastic's off, so that way that doesn't melt from the heat of the processor.
Reiterate that.
Yes. Very important. You want this surface. This is copper. It conducts heat very well, and that's a very common conductive material for computers.
Librarians, check to make sure.
Make sure the plastic is off and this is clean. So the cooler comes with thermal paste. This is basically peanut butter that sandwiches between the processor and the cooler. So that transfers it. We also have more thermal paste if you need it.
Put one away, and in about 8 years, you'll have to reapply it. It's about
Pretty
how it
much.
works.
Yeah.
So basically,
So-
you just put a dab in the middle, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different methods. Some people like to smooth it out and make sure it's even. Generally, what I do, because it's hassle free and just gives you the best coverage, is just squirt all of it right into the middle of the cooler.
This does conduct electricity, so you don't want it flopping off the sides and touching the motherboard. Just so you know, like, yeah, it looks like paste, but it will conduct a charge, thereby shorting things out. So that's why he said put it in the middle,
Yep. So
because when you squish it, it'll spread out naturally.
yep. So you just get it right and lined up. So what I'm gonna do is get some of our screws here ready. So that way, once it's lined up, we can just put it in.
These are the screws he's rocking, in case you're wondering. Just lost one.
No, it's all right. So
Looks like
it's gonna
this.
slide around. So just try and hold it in the middle, and we'll get the screw down into the screw hole. That one's not long enough. Make sure this is still in the whole way. Yep, that is. Alright, let's figure out these screws.
Are these ones longer? These ones are a little bit longer.
Yeah, we can try those. I think the biggest issue we had last time we installed this cooler was
Yeah.
the parts are separated how you think they should go, and then we just ended up using whatever worked.
So there's a second set that are a little bit longer than the ones that came with it. We're talking, just a hair longer, but it's what it is. Does that work?
Almost there.
Or do you want these ones?
We can try those. Whatever's gonna work. Alright. Yep. So the second ones are good. Finally got it in there. So this will probably be the most frustrating part, just because the clearances on the processor are very tight, because you don't want any space between the cooler and the processor. So that just means getting everything screwed in correctly is
This is where little hands come into play.
yeah.
Like, I would encourage an adult to hold the cooler in place, and then have the kids come in with their little hands and just tighten it by hand, because these things are, you basically grab them and you just spin them. Does that make sense? Like, you can put them in like that.
The nice thing about this being kind of a pain is it's spreading the thermal paste across the processor. So getting a nice even spread while we're doing this. Yeah, I'm trying to go opposite again like everything else, but that one doesn't seem to want to thread in as easily, so I'm just going to try and get the other corners just to get it to hold still a little bit. And pushed out just a little. So I'm holding the bracket from the bottom up just a little bit, just so that way because it's only held on with that glue, it flexes a little bit when I'm trying to push down to screw the screws in. So when you're doing this, I'm just doing it by feel because I know where the bracket's at.
Take your time, right?
Yeah, take your time. Just make sure you're not pushing on the board because the board will flex and you don't want to crack it. And just, again, trying to minimize touching the components with your bare hands as much as possible. Is that the longer screw? That's the right one. All right, that one corner is being difficult. Yeah, so it doesn't take much to snug these screws up. They're barely in the hole and barely tightens. And since this bracket's balanced, it kind of wobbles. So I'm taking the opposite side screw out to try and get this problem corner in, and then loosening up the other ones just so that way it has a little bit more room to move for me. Gonna prop this up a little bit. See if I can get myself a little bit more space here. Get a little bit better leverage. Oh, that's all we needed. Treble corners in. Alright. Now to go back and get these other ones.
Yeah, so again, what Mike did is he loosened up.
Oh, nope, everything popped off.
Never mind, he didn't do anything.
But yeah, so loosening up the other ones to make sure that this corner could move down just enough to get in where it needs to go. So since I know it got in, I'm gonna put the opposite one back in just to sort of keep it where it needs to be. Just a little so it doesn't pull that side down again. None of these want to cooperate now. Alright, try it again.
You want to use these instead?
We can try it.
Yeah, those aren't working. All right, so live stream error. We're going to switch it out. Different bolts. So those little thread ones, just get rid of these guys. Like, put them somewhere else. You don't need this, do you?
No. Alright.
These go through the back?
No. Yeah, I think those ones may not be what we're looking for.
Okay.
Alright, gonna try and keep these slightly longer ones going.
Well, you know you can lengthen it. No, I guess you can't.
Yeah, it's really tight. Like, it looks like you should be able to lengthen it, but it's just not.
Well, if these go through
Mm-hmm.
the back. Sorry, I'm just trying to. No, they won't go. You're right. Yeah, because on the AMD Ryzen one, these come up the back side.
Yeah, and then
That's
you
what
use
the-
the other brackets to tighten them. So close.
You know, are there any of the screws that came with it?
Nah, I think that's all of them.
Well, we don't have a choice, right?
Right. Wait. Man, it feels like it's in and then it just pops out.
You get it or no?
Nah.
How many do you have in?
So I thought I had two, but that other one just kind of wiggled out.
I feel like there's some screw or some bolts we just don't see.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Most of the time, it shouldn't be trouble at all putting a computer together. All right, let's backtrack. Just make sure everything's good. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's up plenty enough to get pulled in. So right now I'm just putting the screws in by themselves. Just making sure everything's fit, and then once it's snug, just gonna give it a little. Oh, just want to pull it up to make sure those screw holes we're trying to screw in are fully through the back of the board. Handy dandy magnetic screwdriver. So whenever you drop a screw, try not to drag it on the board as much as possible, but it's not going to hurt as long as it's not turned on for metal to touch the board.
Bless me.
Yeah, this one really doesn't want to cooperate.
The same one?
Yeah. Alright, there we go. Got a screw that likes that hole. Alright, let's try that again. As you can see, we've got a nice spread of paste over the processor here. So that should be good. And I'm just going to pull this back off. We're going to line it up so the dragon looks cool and is facing the right way. Oh, maybe this bracket only goes on one way. Alright.
What's up, dude? Good morning. How you doing? See what you're doing. Well, good morning, Dave. We're over here building a PC. I just figured, yeah, we're building a PC. We're leaving next week. We're not here next week, right? So we have to get this shit done before we leave. Christmas is the week after. So Mike's building a PC right now on Twitch. He's building it live on PC right now so they can watch a video before they can watch anything. You see what I'm saying? You're gonna build it live. We have 18 of them, remember? I mean, it's not like we don't have extra ones. But we're putting it on Twitch now so we can make it into a video. First one. Yeah, when's that? Yeah, we can do that too. But I figured this is the one that everybody's gonna have a heart attack about. Because they're, so I figured we just get it done. You figured out the bolts, man?
Nah, still,
These bolts are giving us problems with this.
yeah, still being a pain.
Is it not screwed into the motherboard?
Right. Let's see.
So we're having bolt issues with the processor right now. But I got a good little setup if you want to watch on the old Twitch. Got 3 cameras going. Yeah, check it out, man. I just upsized your boxes. I added a 3rd camera box, and then I upsized the one and I left the image just and just downsized to the top left corner. 3 board games. All right. Yeah, we're over here if you're bored. See you, buddy.
Should we YouTube this bracket again?
Yeah.
Just because.
Can you do it? Which one is it? YouTube.
Mag Core Liquid 240R V2.
Oh, dude, no, we're using the wrong screws. Wait, hold on, no, whoops, never mind. Those are the wrong ones.
Yeah, do you have the LGA 1700?
Hold on, no, this is what I'm looking for. Gotcha. Hey.
Oh.
They, here you go.
Did they take the
They put the bolts in. Aha! Da ha ha!
So what they do?
Ha ha! Ha ha! The problem. Pull it out.
makes sense. So the short side goes in.
The short side goes in. We got all these hands here, but you get the idea.
All right.
Well, you may need the shorter ones now.
All right. Let's go back to those.
The originals. Here you go. Original. It's, are they reversed there by any chance?
Maybe. Don't be afraid to YouTube anything.
Yeah, we are.
YouTube
We
this
are.
beforehand and still had to go back and do it.
We knew this would be the spot. Like we legit were like, this is the one spot. Everything else, just plug it in and we're done. Now it's the other way.
Let's try this long, small one. Okay, yeah. So the longer, thinner one, small side into the bracket we put on earlier. Right on in.
So now you're just gonna drop those on, and then I'm assuming there's a screw here, like these guys. That would make sense.
We'll cut this out of the VOD.
Yeah, no, the VOD. You're never gonna see this.
YouTube won't.
Yeah, whatever. And then here you go. Yeah, because you need these on the top. Screw them down.
Do you have one more long one?
Mm-hmm. There's 4. Oh, that's right. One went and rolled. Remember that? It's under the paper, maybe. Well, I mean, I have 4 right here. Oh, there you go. Okay.
All right.
Before you begin, put the 4 little.
Put the 4 posts on.
And again, that's from our friends at YouTube, and they didn't even say it. That's the funny part. Like, this is one of those things nobody talks about, but it's literally the problem child. So,
And then
and then you take the spring screws, go opposites again.
So easy.
And that's how easy it
So
is. It's
easy.
all about that knowledge, right? It's just ridiculous. Like, once you know, you know.
Yeah. The problem is when you're not putting these together for a living. You
Yeah,
do
again,
one every
this is our
12
first time.
months.
Yeah. Now watch how fast it goes now.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, we're done. Oh,
Screwdriver. So since these ones are holding the processor and the cooler together, you want to make sure they're a little more than just hand tight. So once it starts getting snug, give it another little turn. So that just makes sure that the contact between the cooler and the processor stays tight and you don't have any heating or overheating issues. Done. All right. So, what I'm looking for now is on the motherboard, there's labels next to all of these different plugs. So I'm plugging in our cooler. Not that one. Not that one. Okay, never mind. These are going to go into the fan controller. So, just unbundling those. And then the fan controller does what it sounds like. It's one brain for all the fans in the case. So what I'm doing is taking this fan cable, making sure our dragon is roaring the correct way. And right now I'm just looking for a good hole to put it through. So you can see we've got all these cable management areas that we can put cables through. So I'm going to try and get it through the top one here.
Anybody who's not got their hands in the case can clean up by removing bolts you don't need. Get a box, throw them in there. Papers that you don't need. Just get stuff out of the way because 90% of it is confusion.
So right now I'm just putting this through the top one just to be a little picky and make it look neater. Don't feel like you need to fish things through like I am for your first time. So wherever's easier, just put that cable through. Alright, so these have 3 holes, 3 pins, so there's a gap between. So we're just going to put... I'm moving this one over just because our CPU cooler cable is not quite as long. So just putting that right on. So these plugs are a little difficult to line up and get in, but once it's in, that's all you need. And then this one comes with an extra, so that way you can chain fans together if you don't have enough spaces on your controller. But that's in. That's good. Alright. Now that that pain is out of the way. So next, we'll just do our radiator fans. So
I
that's
would
a case
actually
fan.
not do those.
You don't think so?
Those, you hook those up, yeah.
So these look like they've got 2 different plugs. So this first one, it's like a rectangular square one. Those are for your motherboard fan slots if you're using those. Or you have the round ones that can go to the fan controller. And then this, I believe this top one is for the thermostat on the radiator.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll pass data back to the motherboard. So that one I'm going to look for any fan here. So this one says pump fan. So since this
let's
is
get
a
in
water
here.
pump,
So you want to point at the fan one for it?
yep, right there. And then you'll notice there's a notch on the back, so you can only get it on one way.
So the top right corner, you'll see it says pump fan, or does it say fan?
Pump fan.
Pump fan. That's the thermostat for the radiator to the cooler at the top.
And then that only has 3 pins, but there's 4 on the board. So just line it up with the little plastic tab in the back. Only goes one way, so that's all you need. And I'm just gonna route that behind here, keep it a little neater.
All you got to worry about is, you know, neatness counts.
Neatness comes after everything works. I'll just put it that way. So, all right. So then what I'm gonna do here is untwist our fans on the radiator. And since we have the fan controller on the back, we're just gonna get these over to that. What's the best way? We'll just go back through this top hole again. So again, whichever spot is easier to reach.
You want to stand it up so they can see? So he's basically running the fan cords from the front through the back to get them out of the way, so that when you look in the glass front of it, you don't see any wires hanging. That's the goal. Now again, this comes after it works, you know, but you can do 90% of it while you're thinking about it as you're building. So run the fans out the back. It'll make a lot of sense once you're
Once
doing
you
it.
see it and have hands on, yeah. Alright, since we only have one spot left, I'm going to plug into our controller.
So again, get your little hands into the fan controller here. And now you have connections for extra fans. You're
Yeah.
just going to
So,
daisy chain them.
Yep, since these two are right next to each other, they can be controlled in the same.
Now the back side of this is a solid piece. You're not going to see the back side of this. So if they just are sitting here loose like this, it's whatever,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
And it came with zip ties somewhere. So you can go back and zip tie things, but I would wait until everything is situated because zip ties are semi-permanent. So you cut them. All right. And then we'll find a spot to snag that. So that's our normal fan controller. You can just sort of get it out of the way there. So with the fans, you just want to make sure no cables are inside the little frame of it because they'll hit the blade. So you can give it a quick spin. No cables are touching. So we'll
I
do
guess
some-
you move it over to this angle. Might be a better spot. We're going to
yeah, we'll figure it out.
move some stuff. Don't mind the semi-professional professional that we are.
Yeah.
Want to get you a downward view of the hotness. So, oh, get out of here. Not that you can see it any better like this, but
We're in there. Getting cables out
I
of the
might
way,
just have to
but-
hold it like this.
Yeah, so giving it a quick spin.
So he
Nothing.
tucked all the extra cables in there because these are already hooked up in daisy chain format, correct?
Yep.
And then they're all plugged in the back,
So they're all plugged in, so you can start getting those a little neater if you want to.
and that's the thermostat wire, right? The line right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that this wire comes from the cooler.
Okay, cool. What's next?
All right. What is next? So we'll do the memory because that's easy to put in and doesn't take up much space.
Or
for
do you want to do
maneuvering.
the terabyte, the hard drive first?
We can do the hard drive too.
Oh,
So
this
you'll
is one,
see.
D1,
So there's
D2.
2 drive slots here. So this drive is called an M.2 hard drive. And, yep, need a little smaller bit.
Move you back to where we were.
Need to case that.
What are you looking for? Oh, you're looking for a screwdriver?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just around here.
We're just here. Are they underneath that?
No,
it's clear.
Yeah, that's clear.
Where are all our screwdrivers?
That's a good question. We just had a whole case of them.
It's a black case.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. It's
under-
literally right there.
under some more cardboard.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think we need to do these. I would just leave these out.
Yeah, there's not even room for them.
Yeah.
So.
And we're done anyhow that way.
Yeah. All right. Slightly smaller tip for a slightly smaller screw. So these silver things on top are heat sinks. They allow the drives to run fast and cool since there's no fans or moving parts on these drives. They're basically a USB drive.
You're installing this right now. So get this box. This is the box you're installing. Inside it, you'll find a solid state drive. MSI, it's a 1 terabyte, I believe, which will basically, it'll work for the next 8 or 10 years, but this is it. Right, this little guy. So inside this plastic is it again. Discharge your static, and then you're going to be plugging it in to the spot, that D1 spot.
Yeah. So on the back of our heat sink, this is essentially thermal paste like we put on the processor. So it's already attached. So you'll remove the plastic from the back of the panel, and then we're going to carefully get this out. So there's notches on there, so you can see it only goes one way. So you can see the notch over here on this side. So we got
It like plugs in on a 45-degree angle and then pushes down. No, that's it. You just plug it in.
Yeah,
Advertisements,
I wasn't
buddy.
sure if that plastic came off or not. So you want to get it straight on as much as possible. Just give it a little wiggle. All right, so you'll notice it sticks
Here,
up a
watch
bit.
this. Here you go.
Yeah, so it sticks up, so that flex is okay. So then what we're gonna do here is put our heat sink back on, holding that down. So what I'm doing is angling this to get the screw where it needs to go. And then another screw there. So that way our thermal paste gets applied to the drive.
You got lights. Look at the high tech.
So again, not too tight. Just enough to hold it. And there we go.
Yeah.
So that's our storage for the computer. So where all your programs get installed to.
Your hard drive is in, is what it is.
Yep. All right. So then we do our memory. So we got Corsair, Vengeance, of course RGB.
Yeah, MSI does not make processors, and they don't make RAM. They make literally everything else, but they do not make the RAM file, the RAM cards, which is what these are. RAM stands for random access memory, and this is the stuff that, remember, like if you visit a website and you open up an image of something, the RAM is what brings the image back up quickly instead of having to slug through the hard drive itself, the entire hard drive. It's like, think of it as short-term memory to the long-term memory of the terabyte solid-state drive you just put in.
All right.
So
Grab
you're going to
that.
be installing 16 gigabytes here, is what this is.
Yeah. So I'm grabbing our reference guide here. Is this the case? Yeah. Where's our motherboard going? Where's our motherboard box?
Right here.
So sometimes you put the memory right next to each other in here. Other times it says which ones are paired up. So you want to make sure your pairs match so that way the memory works as fast as it can.
In other words, you're going to be taking these two cards and you're going to be stacking them in these, I don't know what you call them,
Slots.
the slots. And he's saying if it says stack them next to each other, or should you skip one because it works better certain ways. Normally they're right next to each other is how it always works
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, it doesn't say, so I'm just going to put them right next to each other.
Now to do this, you got to open these bad boys up.
Yeah, so on this board, the top ones here underneath the fans open, these other ones do not.
So that board one more time. So the top,
So the top clips here, so I'll just close them, you can hear them snap, and then they just push open. And then these ones don't move. So then this is also slotted, so that doesn't line up with the notch, but that does. So then what you're going to do is just sort of get one half in,
yeah, I think that.
and yeah, we might have to move the fan. All right, so we're going to take our fan back off.
Why we build this beforehand, right? Are you just going to unscrew these ones right here?
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
So remove the 4 screws on this one. the fan, you're just going to move it out of the way so you can install these really quickly. You're going to be putting it right back in.
Yeah, the heat sink on this memory is bigger. Some memory you get won't have a heat sink,
The heatsink is the
but all the
Is
stuff
the-
that we're sending
is
will.
the aluminum coming off of the card itself.
Yeah, so just more ways to keep the chips running cooler and faster.
I mean, you can just rotate it now, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a little tight from the fan next to
Okay.
it.
So mental note, build the board before we put that in next time.
Yeah.
That goes last.
Whoops. All right.
All right, here we go.
And you get a better view of the clips too. So just get the one that doesn't move angled a bit, and then line it up. Sometimes you gotta lift it up just a little so it goes in evenly.
And you
Alright,
push
and
straight
once,
down.
Once it's in, yep. Come on in.
I always put this one in and then slide it down.
There we go. All right. So again, this doesn't take much force. So a little
Push
more force than
straight
other
down.
things, but just make sure you push straight down
Straight
so
down.
the pins don't bend.
Yeah, you don't want to angle it because it'll get cockeyed. So you want to go straight down with it.
Yeah, like
So tab the first one in and then shut and then lock the second one down. And again, you're putting them right next to each other. These two are going to light up beautifully once this thing comes on. So you're,
yep, just like that.
Cool.
Snapped in.
Now, if you
So-
want to expand yours to add more, you would buy another set of 16 or 32 or whatever, and you would just add those to the slots. And so we're going backwards now. We're putting the fan back in, learning that we should have done this last. You don't need to see this part.
Yeah, you already know how to put fans in because you're experts now.
Okay, so we're done with this. And again, helping hands, you can get rid of this box, put this box somewhere else. You don't need it. So boxes you don't need, just as filler as Mike's doing this, you don't need the the Intel Core fan anymore, the box anymore. You don't need the terabyte, the MSI hard drive anymore. The extra thermal paste that we sent you, put on a shelf somewhere for down the line purposes, because you still do have thermal paste that you can use. And that's pretty much it. That's what we're doing. Oh. Okay, well, you want me to come? Well, you can come get me and I can go. Mike's almost done here. Just come get me. Come to the office, unless you... Yeah, I mean, are we going to be back by 4? Sure. Yeah. Yeah, Mike's got this. All right, I love you. Come get me. Bye. Yeah, so I'll let you run the shipping bird.
Okay.
You know what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help the camera, trying to be useful.
Yeah, you've been useful. All right, just a note since the heat sinks on these are so big. This is a little tight. I got 2 screws on the side, so
Oh, wow.
it's not going anywhere. Normally, I wouldn't recommend leaving stuff unscrewed, but
Oh, can we push it down?
no, there's nowhere to go.
Oh,
on that.
okay.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's tight enough. It's still gonna suck the.
Well, do you want to
wire.
put it over there?
It's
maybe?
even lower there, because it
Oh,
comes.
wow.
It's curved. Yeah, so that's
Okay.
tight. That's all right.
Now we know.
It's in. Okay, so memory. Let's do.
You got
the
your
power supply.
got your power supply and your graphics card.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna do power supply.
Now for power supply, you're going to be working on the back side of this. So basically take your case and flip it over because you need access to this giant area right here. So just kind of flip it over because you're going to be using it on the dirty back side of this where all the beautiful wires are hidden. This is actually really easy. It's the heaviest part. It's four screws in the back of it, and then that's basically it. Then you run some power.
Yeah, so this one's nice. It's modular, so it doesn't have one large cable for everything you'll ever need in it.
Do you want to just hook the power lines up, the modular ones up that you know you need before you put it in? I would do that, like this guy.
Yeah, we can do that. So let's see.
Because I've taken
So
these
these
out
are
a number
labeled.
of times. I've taken them out a number of times.
You got a nice case to keep your extra ones here.
You're not using all of these at all. You're just going to be using some of them.
So there's the power cable to the wall.
So you need that one, duh. That's a duh factor. Now, we don't have to run any extra fans. The only things you really have to do is you have to power the graphics card and you have to power the motherboard. Now, off of that, there are a whole bunch of little add-on wires that we're going to be doing next, but the motherboard and the graphics card are the two that are going to get the most power off of this thing. So that's kind of where we are right now, if that makes any sense. So to do that, you need to decide what ones you need. Now, this big bad boy, you definitely need, because this is for the motherboard. See, it's broken up into two spots like that. So it's when you get the modular part, you want to plug these in, because when you put it in, like, getting access to these things is hard to pull them out, but putting them in is kind of easy. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So again, clip, so it shows you which way is the one way to go. Oh, this guy can. Yeah. So. Oh, is that our other motherboard?
It literally says motherboard on it. Like,
And then CPU maybe? Nope. Both of these in the motherboard.
you gonna show them that one? So which is it?
Yeah. So we got the motherboard right here. Where we at? There we
So
go.
make sure that it's pushed all the way in, just so you know, because once it's locked in place and bolted in place, getting access to this is kind of problematic. You'd have to undo it and then do it again, which is a pet peeve of mine.
All right. Do you want to check that and just see how many power
Sure.
connectors we need?
What I'm doing is I'm opening up the graphics card to figure this out. You'll know this because we'll just tell you this when we get there, because we'll have experience the second time we build this live and third time we build this live. But what we're doing is we're looking at your graphics card. This is the 4060 MSI graphics card. It is a what he asked me to look for was, grounding myself, is the number of connections on the side. So right here is what he asked about. So it's 1 8-prong connection is what it is. So this is going to get connected in the motherboard, and then a power supply from this is going to go into that. So it'll look like this.
So
Okay.
for the cable going to this, the slot that the card goes into is called the PCI slot. So we have our PCIe written on the side of the cable here. And you'll notice it's got 6 and 8. So some of the older video cards only needed 6. So you kind of just line it up.
So this needs 8, so plug them all in.
Yep. So just make sure they're all in. So
Just want to,
testing it.
yeah.
If you want to set that aside, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Just to make sure that fits, and then we're taking the other end here.
It's nice of them.
And so there's different labels on here. So
Let me bring it over here for you.
yeah, so the one we're plugging into now for the video card is going to be VGA. So that's Video Graphics Array.
Is that what that stands for?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
What's EVGA?
that's his company name.
Oh, that's just company. All right.
Yeah, so the connections that you use on the card is not going to be VGA. That's the blue one, but that's
Yeah.
just an abbreviated way to say this goes to your graphics card.
Nice.
And then this one's labeled CPU. So we're just plugging that into the CPU.
So those are your 3 main wires you need. Now, if you're running an external, if you're running a old school
So if
hard
you have
drive,
then
you would-
spinning drive.
yeah, spinning drive, which is like the old school one. You guys have a solid state drive in this that's connected directly to the motherboard. You don't need to run power to it because the power is already in it. Because you're going to power the motherboard. That should make sense. All right.
Oh, that's probably CPU on the. Okay. Yeah. So, again, I was trying to push it in and it wasn't going. So we're just switching ends. Perfect. All right. So there's our 3 cables we need for this computer.
Motherboard, CPU,
Graphics
a
card.
graphics card. And they'll just be there. You'll see them in a second. So putting this in is the hard part. So
So I'm gonna lift it up a little bit just so I can grab these cables in.
little guys this is where you get helpers and you pull the cables through.
Yeah.
Someone holds, someone pulls.
All right. So there. Snuck in the wrong way. All right.
Now-
So they're through. So that way they're out of the way for putting this in. All right. So it's a little tight with the cables pre-installed, but there's enough room to wiggle it in here. And then
You want to flip it so they can see like. So you see how it's going to sit in there.
so they might. So I'm gonna just pull it out to see if the cables go that way or if they go straight through.
You probably go straight through because they're squeezing.
Yeah. All right. So instead of going the whole way through like that, there's little slots.
You're going to remove this extra piece, pinch this, pull it, and get rid of it. This is for an external another hard drive. You're only running one. You're not running multiple. So just get rid of that, because then it'll
That'll
open
give
up
you more
space.
room, but yeah, so there's
I think you can actually take that out if you wanted now.
yeah. All right. So back through, there's a little slot near the top.
So he's routing.
So
The wires
I'll show
through.
where they went through once we get this in.
So they're falling directly into the case itself.
All right. So
Okay, now.
yeah, just to give an idea of where this is at before we screw it in. So the bottom part of this is where they came through.
Does that make sense, everybody?
So,
Should. It's very literal.
so that's where those are. So we'll just prop this back up and tighten the screws in.
Now you're going to have to spin it and come over where I am so they can see how you tighten it in. Oh, that's dope. You get the dragon coming through the side there.
So it looks like there's a couple different screw choices here. So there's one on the side if we had it the other way. But it should line up with these screw holes.
These aren't the ones, are they? Do you have screws for them?
Flip this over, I think. Yeah, that makes sense. So the fan's blowing up out of the case.
Or down out of the case?
No, I think that's the top.
No,
Yeah.
that's the bottom.
Is it?
This is the bottom.
Okay. Either way.
It would be pulling in.
So I'm just pulling some more slack through so there's room for the power supply to sit. But the
Screws are in
Screw.
the bag.
yeah,
So inside that bag, you'll find a little bag of screws. That's what you need, and a screwdriver.
yeah. So there's this one little one in the middle. Just want to make sure that lines up.
Do the first one. You got it? So somebody hold it in place, and the other person comes in and puts the screw in. And then hopefully it didn't pull so hard that it melted the bag. Like me. Crisscross applesauce again, so that pressure is even. Like right now you can let go because 2 are in, and then give it back to Mike and he'll finish it up. I got it. Now what you're doing is you're locking the power supply down into the case itself. So there you go. your on-off switch now. Your plug that goes into the wall is right there. This is the data me, but surge protector is your friend. Plug this into a surge protector, please, not directly into a wall. Every
Yeah.
level of safety you can take, you should on this thing.
The surge protector will save this thing from getting fried. Alright, and I'm just putting it on 0, just so it doesn't turn on until we're ready. Okay, I think that's it for
Golden?
the back for right now. Alright, so back on this side. Gotta find our cables here. So the big one for the motherboard, there's only one gigantic slot here, so we're just going to put that on. So there is a small indentation on this side to show you which way the clip goes. And again, don't push too hard because the case and board will flex a little. So just need enough to get it in.
You'll hear it kind of click. You'll feel it kind of click in place. And if you need to support the motherboard at the base, one finger under, and then
Yeah, just
push down.
Just very slightly.
just because it will, because you don't have every point set up.
It's in. It's not clicking. Maybe it didn't click, but it's insecure now. So that one's good. And then this CPU one. So it looks like we're gonna need 2 CPUs and fans coming back out. So maybe do
The
these
fans
cooler fans.
are absolutely last. We're part 3 of this. I mean, it's just upsetting. The other one's upset. You know, like,
It's all right.
you'll never know when we edit this bad boy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone who comments, it'll be erased. Don't worry about it. Okay.
All right. So since this is still plugged in on the back, I'm just trying to be careful so it doesn't pull the wire out. All right. So we got plenty of space for this one. So what I'm gonna do is, whoops, drop the fan. So try not to do that, but you won't because that'll be going on last. But I'm going through one of these cable management areas. Get that long cable out of the way. And then coming back up here through the top where the CPU connector is. So what I'm going to do while I'm at it, since this board requires 2, as soon as I find my pouch, we're just going to get another cable for the CPU. And there we are. So we got our second CPU labeled one. It shouldn't matter, but the plug on the end is not broken into 6+2 like the video card one, so it's just easier to use. So the tricky part now is getting this plugged into the power supply while it's in. So I'm gonna pop this one out. And this one. That way I can see more connectors. And of course a third one in the way. Alright. So we have another CPU labeled slot down in here. So we're just going to use that one.
What you working on now?
So this board needs 2 CPU powers.
Oh,
So just getting the second one put in. And I'm just going to do it the easy way. Slide this out.
this is why we're doing it now. So when we do it live, you don't have to worry about any of it, right? So mental notes, right?
Yeah, mental notes.
I'm going to take notes over here for you. So mental note is cooling last.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cooling last. 2 powers, right? 2
Yep.
powers
2 CPU powers.
for CPU in power supply. What else?
Mm,
That's pretty much it.
the cooling
Oh.
bracket screws,
Oh yeah, cooling bracket screws.
small side screws into the board.
I think just remembering it, you'll know now.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right, you good to go? All
Good to go.
right, cool. I'll be back.
All right, I'll be here. Maybe.
Yeah, well, finish. If you finish, hit the stop button. You know what else? Okay.
Yeah. All right, so here's our 1 CPU. And then our second one going in. CPU slot. All right. There we are. Okay. So, both CPU cables are in. CPU1. CPU2. And process of elimination. Graphics card. And then finally, motherboard. All right. There we go. All right. Now that all of our power cables are in, reattach the power supply. If it's easier, you can hand tighten these just a smidge to get it to hold. And then let's line up the screw holes again. And get them all in. So once they're in, then you can tighten everything up. All right, now we're ready to connect to the motherboard. All right, and again, oh, camera down. we go. Okay. So let's find our other CPU one. So that was the first one. The second one through our cable management hole. Let's see. Yeah. So I'm just going to pull it back out through here again. Alright, and gonna put them both up here by the plug. Alright, so down in here, you can see we've got two power plugs here in the corner. So you'll see there's a small piece of plastic that shows where the clip clips onto on these. So you'll make sure you face it that way to make sure it goes in easy. It won't go in the other way because of the shape of the plug. So again, if you feel like you're forcing anything, just double check it's facing the right way. And like Bound was saying, small hands are perfect for these little tight areas. Alright, now that they're in, just gonna tuck the cables back through a little bit. So the cables are pretty flexible and they're flat, so wherever it fits, go ahead and just put it in. And that should leave us room to get our fan back on. And again, just doing a little quick hand tight screw just to get everything lined up. And once they're in, we'll just tighten down with the screwdriver. And there we go. Okay. So our motherboard power is completely in. And what I'm going to do is just take this extra slack and just tuck it through our cable management. You can get fancy and go out one and in the other with the main board power if you want to, but just getting those out of the way. Alright, so while we're here and while we're at it, I'm just going to undo this case fan. And then you want to look and see if you can find any old fan plug should work. You can usually see, so this one's labeled System Fan 1. So we're going to go ahead and put it in there. And that should be good. So that one will be controlled by the motherboard. When it senses the computer gets hot, it directs the fan to the different ones. Generally, all the system fans will run at the same speed. So we'll just go ahead and tighten that up. Alright, so that should be all we need to do for there. So we'll get our video card now. So make sure you get all your plastic off of it first, because these things will get pretty hot. So there is plastic on the front and back. Alright, there we go. And I'm trying to hold it by the sides of the cooler there, so that's not touching any metal, not touching any part of the board. So that's a safe spot to hold. So you want to make sure you get this slot protector off before you put it in. And then, so I'm going to test fit it. So this metal slot here is generally where you want your graphics card. It's reinforced in case you have a really heavy card. So I'm just going to test fit where the slot is. So we can see these first two expansion card slots right here. These two need to come out for our card to fit in. So make sure you hold on to the screw from here. But this little protector you can just get rid of. Generally, you're not going to be needing to put that back on once you have an expansion card put in. Alright, so let's get our video card put in. So I like to try and line up. You can see these little prongs here. That's where it'll slot between the motherboard and the case. So I try to gently line those up in front of the slots where it's going. And it's pretty tight in here, so I had to get pretty down in there before I could push it forward a bit to line up completely. So then what you'll do is just put a little pressure, just snaps right in like that, and we'll put the screws back in. So this case is nice. A lot of times trying to get an angle in here for these screw holes is really not easy, but being able to go right down helps a lot. And so you don't drop it like I did. What I like to do with these small ones for here is I'll just get it sort of in and then come down with a screwdriver and straighten it up. Alright, and then lastly, let's plug our power in so you can see the little tab where it holds the clip. And then we'll just line these up. So it's like a puzzle piece, just slide it right on top. There we go. So then when you plug in the big one, that'll hold the two pieces in. All right, there is all of the big stuff. So, the fun part. We have all of these cables back here. So we gotta find where these go on our motherboard. So these three here will be the three front case fans. So we might be able to connect all of those together with one cable. Oh, that's two. There we go. So here's our three-pronged cable plug for the case fans. So again, only one way these go, right where the plastic tab is. And then this one has a normal fan plug, so we'll just find somewhere to slot that in. here it is. So we're just going to look for system fan. Sometimes a board will have one specifically for the case fan. Oop. Hopefully that didn't break. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, just be mindful of the extra plugs when you're flip-flopping this thing. Alright, let's see. Get our handy dandy flashlight out. Okay, the closest one I can find, so we have pump fan and CPU fan. So those should be running off of the same information, so I'm just going to slide one over. And then we'll get our case fans where they need to go. So closer up here to the plug. Alright, so those are in. Alright. So then what I'm going to do now is we're going to get all these cables plugged in. So these are all the connectors for like the power button and the USB ports on the case. So along with the fan information. On Velcro for now, so we get everything plugged in. So I'm just gonna shove everything in through our cable management. Poor little guy. I'll have to get him a more sturdy base. Okay, so way down in here, you can see all these different plugs. So they're all labeled. So we'll just go through and line up the plug with where it needs to go. So the hard part is not all of these are labeled. So this one here, looks by the shape of it, it's a USB plug. Yep, so we have our JUSB 4. So we'll get this plugged in. So that'll be our front panel. And like everything else, most of these only go one way. So don't force anything, you don't want to break it. Sometimes it'll snap off and the board will short out. If you're lucky, it's just the one piece will stop working. So then here's USB 3. So that's a different plug. So labeled here JUSB 3. Alright, next up we've got HD audio. So that'll be the onboard speakers. So it looks like on this one we've got JAUD1 for our audio. just giving a little support to the board on the side there because there was no riser there. So it was flexing a little, but got it in. All right, what's next? All right, front panel. So that will be the switches and power button. Let's see, where is our front panel? Okay, so we have JFP1 for front panel. And again, getting a little flex, so just giving a little support. There we go. All right, and lastly, I believe this is our fans. So I think this may be controller specific. This might just be if you're adding a second controller so they can work together. So we'll just leave that one off to the side for now. And just double check we got everything. Yep, there's fan controller. Okay, so that looks good. So you can go back and remanage these if you want. I don't think I'm going to because they're kind of pulled through for the time being, but that looks all right. So we'll just put the case back together. All right, so this handle is the back. It should slide right in. And I usually just hand tighten the case screws just because I'm in and out of mine a lot. Just one less thing you need a screwdriver for. There we go. And just making sure all the wires are clear from the top cover. Slide right in. All right. Clean up a little. So another piece that came with the, oh that's nice, screw set from MSI from the case. Where were they? So we had little Wi-Fi antennas. Well, when they show up, I'll put them on. But they attach here. It doesn't matter which one goes where. All right, let's see. Where's our monitor? Here we go. Don't do what I did. Open on a flat surface. So we've got our monitor and the stand. So for the stand, There's just a small screw. Lift that up so you can tighten it. And only goes one way. Alright, so nice and snug. Gonna make that flat. Take our screws off from the top. And for the monitor, I don't want to put it up there. So let's see if we can get a good angle on here. So the base only goes one way. You'll see two little tabs at the top, right there. So they slot in at an angle, and then just connect the rest. So this one screws together. Some will snap into place. So we'll just get our screws. And I'm just going to stand this upright, I think. Oh, there we go. So I just pull it up on the base there. Give me a little room to make that flat for the screws. Alright, there's our monitor. So then we have power adapter. So the reason this monitor is so thin is because the power supply is outside of it. So that way it shouldn't get too hot in the monitor. So just put that together. And on the bottom here, see if we can see, we've got our connection panel. So the round one for the power, and there's another round one here for a headphone cord if you're using external speakers. And then the other one we'll do while we're here is our HDMI cable for video. Oh, never mind. Display port. Essentially the same thing, just a different shape plug. Alright, so again, only goes one direction. Get that in while we have some room. Alright, so there's that. Let's get this plugged in. Now we're just going to connect to the back of the computer. So since we put a video card in, the silver built-in slots here, those are going to have display port, but we want to go into the video card at the bottom. Alright, so that's in, then we need our power for the computer. And then I'll borrow a mouse and keyboard. some computers will let you start up without a mouse and keyboard, but sometimes it'll give you an error message. It says no keyboard detected, press any key to continue. All right. Let's see if we can get this monitor. So I'm going to move semi off screen so I can see that while we're doing. So the last thing that hasn't been done is the main switch on the power supply that I put to 0 earlier. We're going to switch that back to 1, and that'll allow the computer to power on. All right, let's see what we get. Okay, so that's giving us a memory error. Computers, modern computers are very good at telling you what all you need. Okay, let's see. Let's get the mouse and keyboard over here. So this initial setup is called BIOS. It's the hardware level for the computer, so it knows what's in it. So it's just identifying everything. So that looks good. All right, I think that's good. So then we're just going to take our flash drive and put that in. So I'm using the top 2 for the mouse and keyboard, so we'll just use one on the back. And let's see. So we'll just go press enter on the X. No changes, which is okay. So then when the computer restarts, it should be all right. So we're just going to press the delete key. That's usually, that might be the setup key. We'll see if we can find the boot menu. Yeah, so you can see that's saying to move the yellow marked module over to the other one. So the channels on this board are A1, A2, B1, B2. So it looks like you just want to match up 2 and 1 together. So we'll just don't remind for now. All right, that didn't take me where I wanted. So we can see our hard drive there. Let's do help. So the one thing you can do is optimize defaults. That'll usually check the best settings for what you've got installed, so you don't have to worry about it. So I don't see it, so I'm going to try advanced mode. Here we go. So here's our boot priority. So you can see there's a USB disk in there. We'll just let that alone. So the boot priority is just saying, start in hard drive, start in disk drive. All right, we'll try to exit one more time. I'm going to try F12. That's usually another boot selection button. Oh, that didn't give me anything. All right, one more time. Worst case, we're looking it up. Hey, there it is. Alright, so I'm not sure if it was F10, F12, or F8, but we got there. So we're just going to go through the window setup here. Kind of hard to get it spot on. So this will get you up and running at least. So we're going to do next. Oops. So you can use the mouse here. I'm just using the keyboard because the mouse is across the table. And then we'll do install now. That's about it. Okay, so here's where we put our key in. Just gonna censor that for a moment. So this will be included with the Microsoft envelope thing that came with the computer. So just opening that up, and on the inside we have our CD. So we don't need the disk, but we do need the key off of it. Oh, that's neat. Alright, so on the envelope the disk is in as a little scratch off to give the last two sets of the numbers for the key. Alright, didn't like my product key, gonna try again. Oh, let's try it another way. There we go. It liked it that time. So, whatever you do, definitely read all of the terms and agreements, accepting it next. So, we're just going to do the bottom option, custom install, just to make sure everything is set up properly. So, you see our drive, it's saying unallocated space because it's a fresh drive, nothing's on it. So, we're going to go down here and hit new. Whoops. Never mind. It's just doing its own thing. So the drive came formatted. I usually just erase it and format it ahead of time. So now we're installing. So at this point, your computer is working and it's good to go. So Windows is just installing. After that, it'll come up. The way I configured our drives, it creates an account called VGC USA. So that will be the default. You can then, once you're in, create a drive for your library with a password, or an account for the library with a password if you want to. But yeah, that's it. So Hopefully this was easy enough to follow. During the live session, we'll have this even easier. So enjoy your new computers.